Hi, welcome to the Acumen Group's celebration of Black Music Month. And I realize that it is now July and no longer June. However, we wanted to make sure we had a wrap up of everything that's transpired in the last 30 days. I'm getting a little feedback from one of you, I'm not sure. Um, so, let me see. All right. So, we want to make sure that we talk a little bit about music and Black music specifically. Um, Please make sure that you like the Acumen Group on Facebook and Twitter. You see our monikums noted right there in the comments. Also, subscribe to the Acumen Group's website if you get a moment, www.theacumengroup.org. Today, I'm joined by two of our lovely editors over at the Acumen Group, and I'm super excited to have both these ladies with me, Dr. Sparks, Sophia Sparks, and Miss Lindy Villacazzi. All right. We today are just going to chit chat a little bit. We're going to take your questions as we go as well. But what we want to do is just talk a little bit about Black music as a whole. And for the last, I'd say 2 weeks, I've made it a point to post certain things on our social media to get responses from you guys and kind of see where you are with relation to all things Black music. One of the questions that has come up concerns itself with why do we celebrate Black Music Month as opposed to celebrating American music? Well, with race in America, as with most things, this was not something that Black people, African Americans, Negroes designed for themselves. It was a segregationist type of move where, in many instances, most instances, all of our radio waves were controlled by the white media. And you may have a stretch of time, usually once a week for about an hour, where they would have what they called the quote unquote Negro hour. And it was during this time that you would have all of these great artists, irrespective of the genre of music, being played at the same time. So you start to see a bit of a crossover where you'll have blues, rock, a bit of what could have been considered rockabilly, country, something that looks like gospel but doesn't necessarily pull into the lyrics, God or anything else like that, but the rhythms are similar. You would have folk music, then eventually you get into R&B and a few other genres, but they all crisscrossed at one point. And so it's important to understand that. Also, many of you, I don't think Sophia or Linda Way are old enough to remember this. I may be the oldest person on the block right now, but when Michael Jackson and all of these other artists, Marvin Gaye in the 1980s, began to win American Music Awards, or even Grammy Awards, they weren't listed by genre, they were listed by race. So they won for Best Black Male Artist or Best Black Female Artist, but it wasn't R&B, it wasn't rock, it was set aside as race music. And so for that reason, going back to the original question, we celebrate ourselves because we were often omitted. And we made a damn good job of it. And so it just kind of carried on. And so you start to see different crossovers. We also just posted not too long ago a tremendous video clip. And I don't have the rights to it, so I cannot show it to you now. But it's James Brown singing, this is a man's world. But he's singing it with Luciano Pavarotti. All right. And so the two of them are literally taking turns alternating verses. And of course, Pavarotti is singing in Italian and James Brown is singing straight soul. But you start to see the crossover and collaboration of the music. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. I must have posted the same video clip 10 times. Like, it's not enough of y'all talking about this right now. And I just really want to make sure that we knock this out because, it was just something beautiful to see. And so looking at that, the Acumen magazine for this current edition with the amazing Roy Lewis on the cover. I can't seem to pull one back from out behind me right now. But we did a job where the editors got together and talked about the music that inspired them or has inspired them in their lives. And for that, we wanted to also kind of share some of those notes with you. So I have also asked you guys again over the last week, the audience, to please be sure to just drop us a little line and let us know your favorites, your likes, your dislikes, that type of thing. But I'm going to start. You ladies can go in whatever order. But the first thing, who are some of the Black music artists over the years that you feel just really inspired or touched your lives, and who made a difference in just how you navigated different things? Dr. Sparks, I'm not sure if you're there. You go. Oh.
For me, there's so many, really, really so many, but I wanted to apologize to everyone. I had to step out really quick, but I could not miss the session. I really wanted to participate, so I apologize now for if any bad audio or camera video feeds occur. But there are so many. Louis Armstrong, Aretha Franklin, James Brown. I know Belle Biv DeVoe. Yes, there are a couple of their songs that I'm just like, I still rock those to this day. And I have to do Maxwell. Maxwell, if you're listening, I liked you so much better when you had that like fro, when you cut it off, that really like hurt my heart. Because I thought you were like, woo, so sexy, so sexy. With that fro, that was hitting. Like it was. You know, like it was like your staple, and I just felt like you sang better when you had the fro. I know that's not true, but still. So those are some of my favorites that always have me going back, just listening to them. I can't remember the jazz artist. He sings "Beans and Cornbread." Do not ask me why, but I absolutely love that song. And I will dance around the house all the time singing "Beans and Cornbread had to fight bees." I do not know why, but that song is I don't know why it resonates with me, but it does. But no, those are some of my personal favorites.
Wow, I'm loving it.
Favorites. For me, I'm kind of a 90s girl. So I definitely loved Maxwell. Grew up to a lot of Maxwell. I loved a lot of Raphael Sadiq. I think him and Tony, and also Lucy Pearl. That was my group, even though they were very short-lived. Yeah. But I was always like a neo-soul, kind of person too. So the most influential to me were probably Erykah Badu and the Jill Scotts. I love R&B, so I prefer that any day over everything. Growing up with two older brothers, also just listening to a lot of underground rap, a lot of Wu-Tang, a lot of Nas. Yeah, I would have to say those are my favorites and my favorite artists.
Wow, that was great. Okay, and then, again, I thought that when we did the original pull together from the editors of all of their likes and dislikes and all of this, I kept saying I will always be the outlier in all of this because growing up, despite the fact that we were in DC and this is the go-go capital and all of that, I had a strong love for R&B, but I was a country music fan. So I know it didn't, but you like what you like. So, but within, for Black musicians, I think I've always been a lover of classics, and I mean classical style. So Nancy Wilson is always at the top of my list. I love South African music. So, yeah, like Linda was like, all right, so Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba, always when I was stressed out, working through doctoral coursework, it was like you could put Hugh Masekela in the background and it was like, I'm done. It was like, it just kind of calmed things out. And I think before they closed Eatonville restaurant down in DC, I ran into Hugh Masekela one day and it was just like, as a seasoned journalist, I'm thinking I'm about to go up to him and be like, yes, and I love your work and da-da-da. And I saw him and I was like, oh my God, it's you. And he was like, no, it's you. And for some reason, I just broke out and started crying. I'm blubbering like a fool, like,
it's you. Like,
and it just kind of hit me, sometimes the amount of the reliance we have mentally, emotionally, spiritually on different musical genres and on specific artists. So it was just weird hearing his voice standing next to me as opposed to in headphones or something. It was like, ah, and I'm just blubbering. He's like, come on, it's okay. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. I feel like such a fool right now. It's like I couldn't even take a picture with them because I was just like all over, like I had the ugly cry face.
Oh,
on. I was like.
But that's the best when you meet your favorite artists and they actually are these humble, sweet people. You know what I mean? That's the best.
Right. And so the thing, again, I think as a young person who just loved music, it was always, if I become a journalist, this is my bucket list. Mm-hmm. These are the people I want to interview and just kind of figure out, you know, what their range is and what their inspiration was. And if they wrote the songs, what was going on with them when they wrote it, things like that. Because it's weird, but it's like many of the songs that we're talking about, they have a lasting impact. So it could be 30 years from now and you hear this song and you remember exactly where you were, exactly what you were doing. It pings something emotionally, I think, that just kind of sticks with you. So, and then most folks know Tina Turner fan to the end. So always interested in trying to figure out, you know, what's going on those sides of things. I think we lost Dr. Sparks, but she'll be back in a second. In that same vein, Lindy, we talked a little bit about having, she is. We talked a little bit about having documentaries or biopics that started to come out. And, you know, years ago, you didn't do biopics unless the person had already passed away.
Yeah.
And then we started with this thing where the people are very much alive. And whether it was a documentary, a film about them, or these things where it's kind of like behind the music. Mm-hmm. Where when you do behind the music, the people are there to try and tell you, you know, some of the trauma and trials that they've gone through. But you had no idea they were going through these things as you're listening to their music and just having groove theory all over them. So one of the things I wanted to find out, I posted this again on Facebook, asking folks what were their favorite soundtracks. What were the first the biopics? And one of the questions that came up, if you could do a biopic on anyone, any musical artist, who would it be? And so Chuck Brown, DC folks just literally went wild. But you ladies, if you could do a biopic for someone who hasn't had one yet, or a documentary, who would it be?
You know, honestly, the first one that comes to mind, Aaliyah was one of my favorite artists. And I think they did her so wrong with the biopic that was done for her. Personally, it didn't feel very genuine to her real experiences, and it didn't really get to the core of her character because she was such a trendsetter. To this day, there has never been a copy version of Aaliyah that they've been able to really replicate like they kind of have some other artists. So I would want to do hers over.
You say do it over completely?
Completely. They needed to start over again.
Okay, Sophia, what about you?
Oh, that's such a hard one. I'm trying to figure out like which one artist I would choose that has not had one. They sort of kind of have done short clips of Lauryn Hill. But just what she's gone through as a woman and then as an artist is just so complex. Right. So like hers really unpacks a lot of being a Black woman, trying to find the one, having children, coming back, and like when I think it was some offshoot YouTuber, they had a studio and she did a session there, and she was just talking about why she hasn't, you know, released any new music, and she just came up with a song off the spot, and she just poured out, and you could tell that she was just pouring out her soul in the song. And Lauryn Hill, if you listening, can you please drop that song on the album? Because I will buy that song. I mean, because it just resonated with you, and the feeling that she put within it. Like it just came through the screen and your heart just went out for her. And
Wow.
like you just felt emotional. And it made you feel, and you're just like, why am I feeling? You're just looking around like, why am I feeling emotional? Like, what the world? And like the way, and she played the guitar, and like you were just like, and then she stopped, and you were like, why did you stop?
Yeah.
Like, so with her, just because of the complexity of what she's gone through, I would choose Lauryn Hill.
Yeah. And we just had a comment from Stacey Palmer, Stephanie Mills. I think you're right. I think she's probably one of the most underrated, under-recognized, brilliant performers of all time. And I would love to see her performing and recording again. I think that goes to the recording industry as a whole. It's just being backwards as hell sometimes, and it's no other way of putting that. I think they're predatory at times, and so it doesn't lend itself to the artistry that's involved in making and creating music, because for them the bottom line is making money. And so when we say soul music, I think that that's to the point. It's straight from the soul, and so it's not something you can necessarily put numbers and all of this other stuff too. I think for me, it's been again, because I've followed that whole Ike and Tina Turner drama, that saga. The two of them were divorced 6 years into my life, so but just researching different things and then having had an opportunity to meet both of them, I think that the biopic, What's Love Got to Do with It, it left a lot of questions unanswered. I think it did more damage than it did good. And by the time we look at the Netflix biopic, the documentary on Tina Turner that's currently still on Netflix right now, you see the trauma that took place in her telling her story and still being on this earth. Because she makes the comment over and over again, I felt like when I told my story, then that would be the end of it. But instead, as journalists, if it bleeds, it leads. So all of a sudden, knowing that this woman had been abused behind the scenes created a whole new ripple and a whole new space where even after that, she's no longer with this person. And even after this man has died, this is all people want to talk to her about. And so you start saying, this is the only Black woman who in the history of the globe, in the world, has filled up football stadiums. But instead of you talking about the art and the music and all of this other stuff, you're still talking about an ex-husband that she was no longer with as of 1976. And here we are in 2012, and this is still kind of coming up. So it was just interesting to see the documentary. And if you have a chance, just peep it. But one of the things that I walked away from it, I felt really, really sad. I just really felt deflated from it. Like she just kept saying, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to talk about this anymore. But for the rest of the world, a lot of the world, that was what was her selling point, which was vicious, I think, in and of itself. Nina Simone is another. So there's a documentary, again, Netflix documentary, Whatever Happened to Miss Simone. Nina Simone, that was a bad woman. And I'm talking about Betty Badass from day one. It was just, she had an amazing trajectory that was uncompromised. And so you could have her do a song like Mississippi Goddamn, where she's calling out congressmen and mayors and senators and citizens council. She's talking trash, and she wasn't fearful for her life or anything. She's just out there. I'm going to sing and tell the truth, and I'm going to do the song live so that you hear what I'm saying, and I mean every word of it. I love when she starts her song. She said, this is a song, and I mean every word of it. Like, and if you're mad, be mad. So when you look at the documentary, you see a certain level of sadness and that disconnect between the artistry and the art and then the industry. And so when you look at things like behind the music, do you think that we've learned enough at this point about the business end of the music business?
I think so, only because when you look at the artists from the past and now once TV really got involved, and their name and their face is more of a commodity versus their actual talent. And you see that progression. I think so. Like take MC Light, great lyricist. And when you look at what she talked about in all of her raps, it was positive, or she would talk about things that were controversy, but she didn't do all this cursing. If you look at her videos, she was always fully clothed. Sometimes she would rock a full like 3-piece suit. And no one ever said, oh my gosh, you need to sit up here and put on something else. Everybody was like, man, her lyrics. So it was more about her talent than it was about her name being a commodity. Now you transition now, it's not about whether or not you have the talent or the skills. It's more about, can you be a commodity? Can we sit up here and sell your name to profit us? So now you got like Nicki Minaj and I can't remember. She used to be a stripper and now yes. So now they sell the fact that she has like a clothing line and a lip care line and all these other lines. It's not so much about her music and her talent. It's whether or not your name can be associated with a commodity that we can actually profit from.
Do you realize, just, and not to cut you off, but do you realize that even our music television stations, our networks, don't show music videos anymore because there's no real profit in it? So
right.
I'm always laughing. They have the MTV Awards. Yeah, but it's good. Like, how do you have an MTV Music Awards when I don't know what the music is and I don't see the videos and I'm not sure who the artists are? How do you have VH1 and it's like video hits one? I don't see any videos. I don't see the hits. I see ridiculousness playing all day long. You know, so it's kind of weird that we've gotten to a point where we're old enough to see how the mechanisms that were a platform for the artists at one point basically broke the artist down. So it's like, if you don't have a commodity to sell, lipstick, hair care products, you know, brand logos, all of that, then it's not really about your talent anymore. It's about your ability to make money for someone else.
Yes.
All right. That's very much the era we're in. It's just, you know, people can thrive off of selling their brand based on how you portray yourself to people, what you do on your social media platforms. That can spin you fast into some type of success, you know, versus your product and what you actually can bring to the table. So the music industry is huge on that now, and the kids kind of follow. Everything is a trend. People don't.
You know that drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because, again, I'm used to the historian in me deals with the consumption of Black bodies. Right, the consumption of Black talent, and when I'll say the consumption of Black souls. All right, and your music is in your soul. So there was a reason, you know, turn of the century up until like the 1930s, that you had a whole group of folks that were coming from New York and other places, and they would go down onto the chain gang. Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas. You get down there and you see these Black men down there with these pickaxes, and they're chained to each other, and they're swinging axes and making the highways and the railroads and whatever. And they would get down there with tape recorders and tape them singing chain gang songs. And there's a whole series of them. And it was just like, do you not understand, again, how others are consuming your pain, your grief, your toil, your sweat, your love, and then whatever it is that they can actually make the most money off of, whatever they can brand, is what actually sells. And so this may be the farthest from who this person actually is. And that's why I can respect the Lauryn Hills and the Jill Scotts and the India Aries. And again, when you start to pull that back, it may be a situation where you won't make that type of money. It won't be the quick money. It won't be the fast money. It may not even be what looks like sustaining money. But if you pull back again and you look at it, Gladys Knight is still a bomb. I'm not even worried. You know, I just saw a commercial for Amtrak with Gladys Knight in it and Spike Lee and Samuel Jackson, and it was hysterical. And the whole idea was she say, you know, I'm still leaving on the midnight train, you know,
Oh,
right. Yeah, it was phenomenal. Her vocal skills haven't shifted. You know, she's still brilliant. Patti LaBelle is still brilliant, but
Patty can still sing.
there you are. But you're not necessarily seeing them branded. You get what I'm saying? And so I think that again, the trade-off may be in longevity on the one hand, and Patty don't have to sell pies. If she wanted to make those pies and do it, didn't matter. Patty's gonna do that. Maze featuring Frankie Beverly. Tell me a time when they come to town and they not sold out.
Oh my God, to this day. My mom and my cousin just went to one of their shows. What was that, 2017?
It's not going to happen, right? Because it's not about branding. It's about the talent and the skill. And that doesn't dissipate. Because again, it's the longevity of it. So we just, when I say understanding that the business end of it, it's really, can you keep to your artistry? Can you be true to yourself and still do what you want to do? One of the things that Salt and Pepper talked about years ago when they did a behind the music with them was just the fact that they came in, you know, with the rap and everything. Everybody had the oversized jackets and all that on. And eventually someone at some record label determined, we need to see your body. We need to see, right. We need to be able to sell your sexuality and attach it to whatever it is that you're saying. And I remember when In Vogue first came out and that video, Who's Loving You, you know, they did the little intro portion. And we just had so many people that came out and said, if they can sing, they don't even need to wear these dresses. You know, if you can sing, you don't even need to. That's a hook for someone who doesn't have the talent to do this. And so it was really, really weird. Yes, the music industry is now based off of hooks and beats. But I think that, again, that's the way it's being sold to a younger generation who's, the commodity is, you know, getting under the beat. And so you'll take someone, again, the Layla Hathaways. You take, you know, some of these artists, you know, Raphael Sadiq. You start to get into those types of artists and you understand, oh, people are still doing it old school. They're still doing it. They still got it that way. And that's the great part of it.
Even artists today like her is actually one of the few. I can't even make the list go on. She's one of the few that has that formula down where it's just about her music and her artistry. And she's very respected because it evokes emotion from people listening, you know. When she first came out, actually, she didn't show her face. And I still remember that. It would always be a silhouette of her because she just wanted people to listen to her music, you know, but you don't have a lot of that today. And she's still, you know, thriving, being able to now come out in the forefront, but without being naked everywhere, or, you know, having to sell sex. She's able to just be herself. So it's a road less traveled for a lot of artists today. But
right. And I wanted to, you know, again, as we're touching on this and we started talking about soundtracks and then just the music within different television vehicles or films. When we bring up Raphael Sadiq and a few other folks, consider a television show like Luke Cage.
Okay.
Where they created a venue on the show where you're having different musical artists who are in the background of these different scenes. And you had Raphael Sadiq there. You had all of these artists where you're like, oh my God, the music is just kind of fitted into the scenes and you're trying to figure out who's singing that. And so you literally start trying to find out, where do I get this music and how do I find these artists who I've not seen before or I've not heard? And I love the fact that at one point they had the late Sharon Jones on there. All right.
Okay.
So, you know, Sharon Jones got in there, kicked it, and it was like, okay, you didn't hear from her. I think the first time I heard a Sharon Jones song, and she had been around for years, but the first time I ever heard one of her songs was in a Starbucks.
Oh wow, okay.
And, right, so it was just like, who is this? And they were like, yeah, it was at the time when they were still selling CDs in Starbucks, and I thought, now this is great promotion.
Yeah.
You know, so you're literally sitting there, you're going, who am I listening to? What is this? And you go, oh, okay. Oh, and here's the CD and you can purchase it while you're in here. So I thought that was like super cool. But then as far as other soundtracks are concerned, we started asking, what is the theme music, the songs from your childhood, from different films, different soundtracks that just hit home. One of the things that kind of struck me is that we don't do soundtracks anymore.
Not as much. Black Panther soundtrack was nice, but we don't do soundtracks as much. I would say one of my favorite was the Love and Basketball soundtrack.
Wow. Yeah.
I love. So it's a lot of R&B, a lot of Donnell Jones, a lot of Lucy Pearl.
Right.
And it brings good memories because it's of that 90s period, well, early 2000s, 90s period. It's kind of that feel good music.
Right. Right.
That's like we don't hear as often, not on mainstream radio.
Well, and then I think that the when you think back to maybe it had to be the early 90s, maybe. Again, I have to age myself when I do that. But when I think in terms of soundtracks, like Boomerang, where Babyface it was like every song on here hits something different. Or Stacey Palmer, Waiting to Exhale. All right. And so you get all of the Whitney love that you can manage, but then you have all of these other great artists. So every single song on that soundtrack, it did something. It went, if it didn't go to number one, it was close to it.
Right.
And it stayed, it stuck. So you're like, okay, I was trying to figure out, why aren't we doing this anymore? But then historically, you start looking at soundtracks and you go, okay, Curtis Mayfield, you would be lost, I think, with Black culture if you didn't look at Curtis Mayfield and how he literally just went through with different soundtracks, including Claudine, which is one of my favorite films of all time. And I always say, once again, shouting out Gladys Knight, you could not make that film work. It was a wonderful film, but that soundtrack tied to it, Mr. Welfare Man, on and on. Every last song that was on there, it hit. It was emotional. It tied to the film, but also it could stand on its own. And it was like, okay, we don't do that too much anymore. The staple singers, shout out to Mavis Staples, who's still out there tearing it up. But it's like you couldn't have any of that trio of Black films that Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier did in the 1970s, Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again, and what was the third one? A Piece of the Action. All right, you had the staple singers on all of them, and it was like, bam, that's it. Right?
You just schooled me a little. You gave me a few people I have to search up.
I was going to say, I know technically I'm old enough to be your mother, so it's like, all right. But then when other people started posting on Facebook, they listed Car Wash. And I was like, right, as soon as you hear the intro to Car Wash, you're like, oh, we're getting ready to dance and act a fool.
It's just the tone.
Right. And then you also find that there's a lot of music from the 70s where they're saying they found the lost album, the lost recordings of. So there was a lost recordings of Marvin Gaye that came out not too long ago. And I was just trying to figure out, where was it lost? How did you find it? And who benefits from it being produced at this point? So there's a lot of music that's still kind of out there right now. We're trying to figure out, where did this come from? All right. Guys, we also have, I wanted to make sure I did this in case we had a little bit of time and we had enough people on here joining us today. It's a few jumping in and out. So I'm going to do this anyway. If I get the responses, we're good. I'm going to do at least 2 trivia questions. All right. And whoever gets the trivia right, you're going to get an official Acumen t-shirt. All right.
Nice.
All right. And so the first question, since we are actually celebrating not only the end of Black Music Month, but in the next month or so, there's going to be a release through the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is a hip hop anthology. And I got a little sneak peek at it. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's phenomenal. Right. One of the things that we never talk about in early rap and hip hop are the female artists that kind of were behind the scenes, And many of them were officially on the mic. They led the charge. So the first question, I want to see if you guys can get this. Who was the very first Black female MC?
Oh, it's a good one.
All right. And I'm just going to leave it out there. Do not cheat. Don't try and go to Google and figure it out. Don't try and go to Google.
Fandom.
Right. Who was the very first Black female MC? And she got her start around 1977, 1978. All right. All right. So if you can find the answer, if you know the answer, drop it in the comments. Every time we do these trivia contests, Lindy, nobody wins. And I'm amazed. I'm like, I always get to keep my merchandise because y'all are just not up on it. And it's so good. But that's a good one for me. The other trivia question, we'll just do two. The second one, you may be able to see. I got my Kenny Rogers shirt on. All right. Those of you, I'm not bothered by y'all. Every now and again I get these comments. Why you got that? No, it's not Roxanne. She predates Roxanne, Sophia.
That was my first guess.
Kenny Rogers had Lionel Richie of the Commodores to write the song Lady for him, which took him from the country charts onto the pop, easy listening, all types of crossover charts. It went to number one and stayed at number one for aeons. The question is, and many of you should know this, what Black female artist did a duet with Lionel Richie the same year? What was the artist's name, and what was the name of the song? Two-parter. All right.
Stop me on that one.
All right. Lionel did a duet with Lionel Richie. Female artist, Black female artist. Name the artist, name the song. All right. All right. So we got the t-shirt again that's up for grabs. Let me see if y'all can do this. And this is what you're going for. And on the back of this, it has the Acumen logo. I don't know if you can see that, but it basically says, we're examining eugenics in popular culture and everyday life. And we want to make sure that you're walking around sporting our goods because we love having you around. We love having you on here with us. All right. So Stacey Palmer has a shirt. Yes. The answer to the second question is Diana Ross, and the song is Endless Love.
Okay.
Yay.
We got a winner.
Yes. Okay. So when we look at this now, one of the other things that came up when we started talking about artists that or biopics and documentaries was, again, can we get a Chuck Brown biopic? And if we did, who could play Chuck Brown?
See, because I want to say someone local, like a local artist, the best, I think. I don't think we don't need to do no castings in any other state, any other area, district. Nope. There's a singer that I love. People might think I'm crazy for this, because part of me says somebody from New Impressions. That's my favorite go-go group. But there's a singer from DC that I absolutely love, Kevin Ross, out of Southeast. Okay. Just because of his success, his music, his vocal ability, I feel like he'd be able to kick into that. He's a Washingtonian, so I feel like he would really be able to portray Chuck and the culture very well.
Wow.
Very well. I love Kevin Ross.
That might be all right. I think we initially had someone say Chuck Brown's son would probably be cool with that. He would be able to do the role. Are there any other artists, again, that you would love to just, get some background, get a backdrop on them, and kind of figure out and see where their careers are? And again, I know that we talked about Stephanie Mills, but DC artists, I don't even think we put them out there like that necessarily. And we had a conversation at one point about the correlations, like the continuity between the rap game and how it got started, and then go-go music in DC, and just, both of these genres kind of come out of some oppressive issues that may have been going on in these cities. I know with rap music, you're talking about the Bronx when you had these crazy building owners who were paying, crackheads, whoever else, or they were burning their own buildings down with people in them because they wanted to get the insurance money off of the buildings. And so you literally had whole blocks and neighborhoods in the Bronx that were reduced to rubble. At the same time, there was another apartment building right next to it that actually had people still in it. And so there are a number of photos when we start talking about that early rap era, that early hip hop era, where you see the artists posed up with these broken, the ruins of buildings all around them, So with DC, I don't think that it was quite that structurally pivotal. I think that there were other things that were going on politically in DC, socially, with housing and education or whatever that was going on here that kind of served as a springboard for go-go. But that story even hasn't really been told. And so I think it would be great if we could just get a real history of go-go from the people who lived it. I don't really want outsiders playing with us.
And the artists today who have kind of, derived from that culture. Wale is a huge one. And I would be so interested to be able to interview and catch up with him just because there's so much controversy, I feel, behind Wale, where a lot of people support him in the DMV. There's a lot of us that don't support him. I think people don't necessarily know how to receive, his way of music. He's very poetic. He's different. He definitely brought go-go on board with him when he became mainstream. And so he really embodies that DMV energy and sound to me, but there's not a lot of people that there's a lot of controversy as to who takes to him and who doesn't. So I would love that. Ari Lennox as well, because she represents DMV. And she's doing amazing things right now. On the BET Awards, I thought she gave one of the best performances with Jasmine Sullivan. And so she needs to get a lot more recognition here too.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. It's the Jasmine Sullivans. It's like, okay, you're there, but you're kind of on the periphery of things sometimes. And it's troubling to me. It's the Emily Sandys, it's the folks that are there, but aren't necessarily the focal point of things. You may see them as a collaborator with someone else, and then you kind of get to know them. So that's a little weird. But again, I'm not sure if that's the industry or their social media works or what, you know what I mean? But it's rough, I think, when you have that level of skill and artistry and it's just not being noted properly. I mean, that's the thing. How do we listen to music now? So the radio used to be, you'd be like, okay, here's a new one from so-and-so. All right. Now what I'm getting is digitized music, and in DC, we're listening to old school on every channel. So
it depends on where you are. And I mean, TikTok is a big thing too. Everybody has these challenges as just making certain songs popular. It's another thing. It's a catchy thing.
Okay, what is the thing? Speaking of that, how is Versus working for you guys?
Oh, I love Versus. Yeah, I thought that was a very innovative platform that they made during the whole shutdowns and during COVID, because they're getting some of our favorite artists, to really take us back in time, go through their whole catalog of music. And depending on who the artist is, it's been very enjoyable. Part of it's been a little, so I'm going to say reality TV-ish, like the Jeezy and Gucci Man one. But it's a good time. I'm loving Versus.
Well, that's the thing. And it's been strategically Black. All right. So I love that comment. Pay to play has killed radio. I think you're right. And I think that what ended up happening, I'll listen. I don't even bother with the radio anymore. I'm usually on XM at this point, but I always tune in. Shout out to Donnie Simpson and Tony Perkins. I just check in with them because they make me laugh. And then if you get that fool on there talking about what's the deal, pickles, Huggy Lowdown, you get Huggy Lowdown. It's just some laughs, in the early afternoon. But I always respect the fact that Donnie Simpson and Tony Perkins will talk about the music and they give a history of the music. And so it's invaluable because, again, when we talk about like older films, the same thing goes for music genres that you're not familiar with at the moment. There was no Entertainment Tonight. There were not these social media platforms where people could talk about the music and the artist. And, one day Donnie Simpson got on and started talking about, it's this one song, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but there were like 3 different versions of this song.
Okay.
And they sat, and the song was long. The song was probably 6, 7, 8 minutes long. So, in radio, that's like, we do 2-minute songs and we take breaks. Like, what you doing? The song was like 6, 7, 8 minutes long, and 3 different artists did it, and they actually played all 3 versions and discussed them out. It was the Donna Summer version of this song. I think the Temptations had done a version of the song, and it was like, and I preferred this one, and I just thought, okay, wow, all right, yeah. This is kind of what we used to have at one point when we had Video Soul. This is what we had when we had, again, music television, where you can have the artists come on and talk about. And I remember Mary J. Blige being out there. It's like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. I think there's now a documentary that's on her life right now. And I just kept saying, no, I don't, again, let the Tina Turner story be a warning to you. If you're still around, you may not want to divulge all of this just yet. You know what I mean? It's just kind of weird. Speaking of awards and recognition, though, we have a new honor system that's coming up. Inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And among the awardees this year is Jay-Z. What you think about that?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, see, and that's the thing, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because of that crossover. As far as I'm concerned, rock and roll is actually soul music with an upbeat. All right. So you can't say, so all of the genres crisscross at some point. And so because of that, rap music is included in this now. Jazz is included.
I'm like, I don't know if I can say it could cross over that far. Jay-Z never really gave me that rock and roll kind of vibe. So I'd be interested to see what about his music constitutes as to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
There's some artists in there. There are a lot of artists in there. You would kind of go, I don't know if that quite fits. But again, I think they're looking at just the scope of rock and roll as something that started off as soul music, as blues music. So you have a lot of blues artists that are actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay. And so, and there may be a couple of rappers that are in there. And I would need to look that up, but it's like, yeah, you have a few. Wow. I'm always interested when an artist is not necessarily producing music in the given year that they're being inducted, and that they have a large body of work and you're pulling them in. So even though George Michael is dead, all right, just that cross, I call that blue-eyed soul the same way I would Dusty Springfield, so I see George Michael as he's on that line between pop, rock, soul. He's somewhere in between there, depending on what the song is. So he's recording with Aretha Franklin. He's recorded with all these other people, including Mary J. Blige. So you're just like, okay, I don't know how the definition for them actually works, but there were a number of people who were left out. And so there was still this thing like, but what about Shaka Khan? You got
really, or CeeLo even. CeeLo for his Gnarls Barkley type catalog.
Right. You just start literally going down the list of folks who, I think there may have been 20 people that made the short list. And then from that, they allow people to vote and try and figure out who they thought would be in. And then the official committee had their vote or whatever. But I think Dionne Warwick was on the list as a potential and didn't make it. And I thought, well, depending on how you spend that, yeah, she technically could have been in there. But Shaka Khan, definitely, Rufus and Shaka Khan, they definitely could have been, on that end. So it's just kind of weird how they did it. But the award ceremony should be coming up before the year is out. And so as we're looking at just all of the activism, the social activism that's going on in the country right now, We don't really have musical artists necessarily using their platforms or their music to kick ass like that, And I'm just, it's always kind of weird to me, like, okay, they may be, and I don't know, maybe they're putting their money into things on the back end.
I think that's the safer way for a lot of artists to do it today. I think a lot of artists are being muzzled in a sense, or it's a choice, because when you do start to speak out about certain topics or go against the grain, if you will, weird things start to happen to musicians or to the livelihood of their career. You know what I mean? It just really depends. But I wouldn't say, I can't say it's too many current artists today that are more of that kind of like revolutionary spirit. I think everyone's kind of staying in their lane.
Is the cancel culture real in that sense?
Oh, very real. It's real, but even though it's real, that's a trending thing too. Oftentimes we cancel people, and then 2-3 weeks later, if they hang with the right person that we like or the right musician that they like, they're back on. So cancel culture is kind of dangerous.
Well, right.
They would cancel you for having an opinion. They tried to, cancel Trick Daddy, for example, just for his opinion about Beyonce. I mean, on this man's Yelp, trying to go against his restaurant just because he doesn't think Beyonce can sing, as he says. So it can get dangerous.
Well, and we also have to understand. I always say I enjoy this person's music. I support their artistry, but be clear that the term fan is short for fanatic. Mm-hmm. Okay, absolutely. We don't know these people. Mm-hmm. We really don't know them. And so it's like, okay, it's nothing again like being a journalist and you actually come across your hero.
Right.
And then you realize a hero ain't nothing but a sandwich. Right. A hero ain't nothing but a sandwich. We're not doing this. So it's just kind of one of those weird things where you kind of have to grow into the music that you enjoy and say that you enjoy it and all of that. I would be remiss if I did not bring up, again, the jazz culture. Dr. Wilma Leon is always telling me, you got to listen to John Coltrane. All right. For those of you who remember WJSU FM 88.5. All right. I did have a radio show years ago, Jackson State Radio. So it was a jazz station on the campus of Jackson State University. And it was a brilliant space. And so we had an opportunity to learn different forms of jazz, different formats for jazz. And so, yes, John Coltrane is always at the top of my list, but then also folks like Gregory Porter. And I think that he is another artist right now who is sorely overlooked just in mainstream. He hits his marks every time. And this is the other thing. It's rare nowadays that you find an artist who can perform live and the live sounds as good as or better than the recorded version of their songs.
Absolutely. Right. Raphael Sadiq, he could pull that off.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gregory Porter is one of those folks where you just like, okay, all right, get the chills kind of down your spine, like, all right, you don't need to orchestrate or, have fillers or any of this other stuff. It's just there. Also, the old school folks, the Earth, Wind and Fires, the bands,
the
Isley Brothers. There you go. We tend to overlook the ability of an artist to sing, dance, direct the band, keep the audience hooked, all at the same time, and they don't have voiceover. They don't have any aid with it. It's like they sing it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? Yeah.
That in and of itself is a skill, and I think that is sorely missing right now. I'm grateful that as we get ready to close this out, that Black Music Month, we're seeing some great stuff come out. I'm kind of floored that some of the artists from years ago are finding new life again through pop culture. So you're starting to see, for instance, Bobby Blue Bland. It's like, if you're not down south, you don't pick up on blues artists like this, but there are at least two different television series running on either Netflix or Amazon Prime that are current television series where his songs are being used as the theme music and the intros for these television series. And I just thought, and these are foreign shows. So one of them is set in Oslo. It's called The Foreigners. And I just thought, I'm reading subtitles, but when the show comes on, that's Bobby Blue Bland. Got him in here, killing it. So it tells me again that the music, the Black music, is literally crossing over cultures and oceans and all types of situations to be the perfect vehicle to get the messages and the storylines of these films and these television series kicked in and moving forward. And you're just like, yeah, I couldn't think of a better intro, to the show now. So it's just really beautiful to see that type of growth within the Black community. And so my question to you as we close this out, what do you think? Where do you see Black music going at this point, especially when we start to look at, again, the fact that you can TikTok? And I don't necessarily see it as bad, because I'm thinking this reminds me of when artists were selling their music out of the trunks of their own cars. And for me, it kind of takes the middleman, who sometimes is the problem, out of the equation.
That I will agree on. Where do I see Black music going? I do see our music continuing to grow and get more diverse, because as an Afrobeats fan, huge Afrobeats fan, I'm starting to hear more of my favorite Afrobeats artists on our radios now. Wizkid, Burna Boy, and these artists are becoming very familiar to us here stateside. So just that merging of our different sounds is a beautiful thing. And the social media, the TikToks and things are really helping to spread our different types of music on an international level. And also just those local artists whose music have not been tainted, by the industry or that mainstream commercial sound, if you will. I think that's definitely going to continue to grow. People having that platform is really inspiring people to put themselves out there creatively, freely, and not have to wait for a record deal just to catch fire, really. So
right.
I see it growing.
Lindy, who was that? Who was the guy that you talked about in the Acumen magazine? And I told you I was looking up the artist, and he looked like he was 7 feet tall. He had a band behind him. Big tall.
Lucky Day.
There you go.
Lucky Day.
I literally was like, okay, Lindy, what do you have me watching? But once the song got started, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm good.
No, not Lucky Day. Moses Sumney. Yes, ma'am.
That's who it was.
Yes.
Moses Sumney, right? Because the other little guys around him was like, what is this? This is like a hodgepodge. Like, he just went and found some street people. What is this? And then what's the
No, he's different.
You literally turned me on to that, and I was just like, wow, okay, I'm getting into this. Someone else to look for, Lineker, Linikeer, and he's out of Brazil.
Okay.
Right, and just an amazing artist. And I tell everyone I don't speak Portuguese, so that tells you how much I love the music. I have no translation for anything Lineker is singing, but I absolutely love the music, and I love the spirit of everything that takes place in the performances. So, and I even saw Lineker live, so that should tell you something. It's like, I gotta go see it, and then I'm getting I don't know what the hell he's singing, but all right.
But it feels good.
Right. So that's the brilliant part of it. Black music is, again, it's about consuming, and then kind of the synergy of getting that soul music back in you, rejuvenating. And so it's been a brilliant Black Music Month. For Stacey Palmer, you will get your shirt soon. You can inbox me your address. I'll drop this off to you. To answer the final, that trivia question, the first Black female MC was Sha Rock. And you got to go find Sha Rock. I'm going to type in her name. Sha Rock, and she led a group called the Funky 4+1.
Okay.
All right. So check out Shaw Rock and the lyrics. When you start talking about lyricists, I love the fact that you shouted out MC Light. The sisters were really in there killing it. Shaw Rock, Lisa Lee, there's a few others, early rappers. And it's like, yeah, we need to make sure that we don't forget them preceding. Sure. Also love the fact that Queen Latifah was honored at the BET Awards. Love that Lil' Kim and the rest of the ladies came out and showed their love and respect. That was true honor. And so shout outs from Acumen Magazine and the crew over here, because it was absolutely brilliant.
We blew that out of the water.
Right.
They did.
All right, guys. Well, that is our time. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, again, go like the Acumen Group pages and Acumen Magazine, www.theacumengroup.org. Visit us on Facebook. Drop us a line anytime. And we'll field your questions one way or the other, even if we're not on here to do it. So prayerfully, we'll see you soon. And again, don't forget to register for the Acumen Group's summer course sessions. We're trying to teach you a little bit about eugenics and race and bias and entitlement, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. So it won't be heavy, but it will be informative. And so we have to get to a point where we are forewarned and forearmed at the same time, so we can get out here and fight the power. All right. That's a little shout out to Public Enemy, by the way. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Lindy. Thank you, Sophia. Be blessed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sherman. Take care, everyone.